And there we are. It went from scheduled to live, just like that. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Rocket MSP Podcast. I'm Steve Taylor, your host, and today I'm joined by Amy Babinchak. Hi, Amy. How's it going?
It's going all right. Thanks, Steve.
Absolutely. So we literally just met 5 minutes ago. We've never really spoken other than maybe in passing on one of Carl Palachuk's Facebook posts. I think other than that, we've never
Could be.
met. So you've got all kinds of awards and accolades and all kinds of good stuff behind you. Do you want to tell everyone, for the people who don't know who you are, who are you?
Well, my name's Amy Babinchak. I've run an MSP up in Michigan for 20 years now. I've been a Microsoft MVP for 15 years, and in various categories over the years. They keep moving me around. So I'm a technical person. I also have a company called Third Tier, which helps out other IT firms. And I don't know, I'm a real community-oriented person, so that's probably how I end up getting introduced to a lot of people. You know, I write and I speak and participate in a lot of community groups, and I just try to be very active in the community, in the career that I've chosen for myself.
Very good. So, you've been running an MSP for a while. You've been a Microsoft MVP for 15 years. I mean, what does it take to be an MVP? They'll just hand that out to anyone, right?
No, there used to be like 4,000 worldwide. I think there's a lot less than that now, like maybe half of that. Maybe 22,
Really?
maybe 2,200 or something. Yeah, they really kind of cleared it out. It's a worldwide thing. Every year they decide to award some people. And they take a look at what you've done in the previous 12 months as far as being active in the community, being someone that people in the community look to, and that kind of thing. So it's an ongoing process. Every year I'm happy and I'm surprised, and I'm still glad to be here. I mean, at this point, it's kind of part of my identity. So it'll be sad when someday it goes away, but it will. Yeah, I really like sharing with people. So I've never felt threatened by anybody. If someone needs help, I'm willing to help out, and
That's great.
Just that. So that kind of got the attention of Microsoft, and they continue to think that I'm one of the more influential people out there. So.
Oh, that's great. All right. So with that, one of the things that we kind of talked about when scheduling this was, you said you wanted to talk about making money as a Microsoft 365 administrator.
Mm-hmm.
So that sounds right. So we only get like pennies for these licenses. Why on earth would we want to really focus on this? That sounds like a terrible business plan.
Because we're consultants. I mean,
Okay.
so 20 years ago when I got into this business, I got into it by accident, as many people do. And in that I was working in an enterprise environment, and I ended up with a bunch of clients on the side and small businesses, because people would say to me, "Oh, my brother has a business. Do you think you could go and help him out?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, I can go over there on Saturday, or after work or whatever, and give him a hand." And I realized what horrible support that small businesses were getting, that they were either getting these, overbuilt enterprise networks, or they were getting giant home networks. They weren't actually getting anything that fit them, and that, they were just getting really bad support. And so I found that I really, really identified with those business owners, and I wanted to work with them. And eventually I realized that that was what was driving my passion in IT, was being able to help these businesses be better. And and that sort of drives my whole interest in IT, right? I always say IT has no other purpose than to make business great. And so I can't make business great by selling them a license, right? I can only make business great by selling them a license and then showing them how to make money with that, right? How are they going to use that to better their company? And so that's always been a focus of my MSP, that we don't just install the stuff. We're actually going to make sure that they're using it, getting all the value out of it, and that they can look at that expense and say, my IT expense makes me money. Because the other thing that I say is, if you're, if your IT investment isn't making your money, something's wrong. It should be making those companies money. And so as an MSP though too, it should be making me money, right? All that consulting work does make money, right? So Microsoft 365 has about 30 applications-ish that come with it in that suite. Most people out there just simply sell that license. Here you go. I migrated your email. We put some files in your OneDrive. Here's Teams. Okay, have fun. Call me when you have a problem. That's not how to do it. You're not making any money that way. You have to be constantly chasing that. Whereas if you work with that customer and you're continually rolling out new features, rolling out new applications, showing them how to do it, converting their old processes into new modern processes, that's where the money is, and that's where the big money is.
Interesting. So beyond, I know, like you said, Outlook, hosted Exchange, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, maybe Teams. Let's put a maybe next to Teams, right? And probably OneDrive.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say? What would you say you're doing when you're trying to sell this to a client? How do you go to them, like, because pitching them into 365 is easy. Pitching them to keep paying you to implement more of 365, I suspect, is where it becomes a little harder, right?
Well, no, I don't think so, because it's the whole premise of being an MSP, right? The first word of that is managed, and that's where you get your monitoring and patching and blah blah blah, all that super boring stuff. The second word is service, right? And you're not providing service if you're not out there doing things for your client. And so that's what we pitch them on. I don't pitch them on, hey, I would like to sell you 365 because it's a great email application. It's like, you need, when we talk about 365, we talk about it as infrastructure, right? This is the entire thing that makes everything work, right? This is a whole suite of applications that we're going to build on over time. This is how your business is going to run inside of 365 from this point forward. And then slowly, as the months go by, we will begin to introduce new things. And so when we're talking about it, we're just not talking like about it's time to migrate you from a server to cloud. It's like, what are you going to get from that? Right? Here's all the benefits you're going to get, right? We're gonna start rolling out bookings. We're gonna start rolling out OneDrive. Hey, did you know in OneDrive we can get rid of your old FTP server? We can put out a really good solution that's web-based for your clients to upload files to you. Hey, we've got this application called Bookings in here that'll let you set up times for scheduling so that you can have people automatically schedule appointments with your calendar. We've got Mile IQ. That's a great solution for expenses and mileage tracking that's built into that. We've got flows through Power Automate where we can move data from here to there automatically and automate a lot of these manual tasks that people waste their time doing every day. So this thing is not about email. This is about how you're going to run your business and taking advantage of all the promise of the cloud. That's what 365 is going to bring to the company. So they know that we're not there just to patch their computers. In fact, we almost never talk to them about that. We talk to them about security, and we talk to them about business process and making their company better.
So that sounds really easy to do with an existing client. How might you change that pitch if it were a prospect, someone you have not done business with?
I don't. I absolutely don't. So it's really interesting. I don't have any salespeople, right? All my techs are salespeople. Right? So they're all responsible for sales. And when we go to meet a potential new client, we have no packages. We have no bronze, silver, gold thing. We have no pre-built solutions of what, hey, we're going to go in, here's our sheet of what we do, which package do you want? We don't do any of that. We talk to them about what their goals are, what they want to accomplish. We talk to them about ways that we can leverage the modern technology that's out there to make those things happen and solve some of their problems. We'll ask them some questions about things that are inefficient in their company. We'll offer a couple of solutions, and we'll tell them, that's the kind of thing that we're going to do. We're here to work with you, Mr. Business Owner, Ms. Business Owner, to help make your company great. That's our purpose. Are we going to have, are we going to make sure your computers are patched and things are running and answer your help desk calls? Yeah, we're going to do all that. Everybody does that. But what's really important is that we're going to make your business better than it is today.
All right. So if you have all of your techs are your salespeople, which is really cool, by the way. How many techs do you have?
8.
8 techs plus you then?
No, 8 of us total in the company.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then you don't have anyone that's like office admin or any of that type of stuff?
There's one office person does the books and that.
Okay. So if your techs are all responsible for sales, how does that work? Because I suspect, like, do they have quotas or any of that type of stuff?
No.
Okay.
No.
So are any of your techs doing like going to Chamber of Commerce luncheons and networking groups and BNI, none of that type of stuff?
No. No, our sales is really it's really relationship sales, right? I would say we get almost all of our sales come either through LinkedIn. Occasionally we were used to hold twice annual in-person events. We would invite potential clients and current clients together, and we would hold an all-day educational event. That was a great generator of new clients. And then the rest really come through relationships with vendors and LinkedIn.
So how does that work with the LinkedIn? Are you doing are you paying for like the fancy LinkedIn premium where you're going on and looking for people, or are they all coming to you?
I do have LinkedIn Premium. That's not their super fancy license. They have the one called Sales Navigator that's pretty expensive. The Premium gets me everything that I need, right? So I post regularly in there to try to convey the idea that we know what we're talking about, so that when somebody decides that they need an IT firm, they'll be like, oh yeah, I've seen Amy posting some stuff. I should, maybe that's who I should contact. And they do.
Okay.
And then when we're holding events, so now we've been holding virtual events. When we're holding in-person events, I would seek out local businesses and invite them. Say, hey, we're having a we're having an event, get some free education, find out how Microsoft 365 works, right? And so and I would send them an agenda. Here's everything we're going to talk about, and here's everything you're going to learn. And so it's just really giving them a bunch of free education. And then they would realize at some point that they were in a room where a lot of the people in the room were already clients of ours, right? Because, and I had all my techs speak at this event also. So I also make them speak in front of people, which is very uncomfortable for them, but it's an awesome learning experience. And, so here's your prospects in a room, mingling with your current clients who already love you, right? And they're there learning free stuff that they've never heard these things from any other IT firm before. And then they're impressed. And we end up signing up bunches of clients that way. That's been our most successful sales effort ever.
That's really cool. So with you signing up clients through these lunch and learn type events or bagels and I don't know what rhymes with bagels, but anyway, so you have these events, or I'll say you had these events. How has it changed? Now in this whole new world that we have, are you trying to do like Zoom events? Shipping out McDonald's to everyone? Like, how's this work?
So we have not tried to replicate those events because I don't like attending myself. I don't like attending events that used to be in person that are now online. That are, trying to be the same thing online that they were in person, because I just don't think it works. So what we did is we changed it up, and now we're having mini mastermind type groups. And so we'll propose a single question, and this is all business related stuff, because COVID has changed a lot in the way that people have to run their business. And so we've been proposing business type questions and then inviting people to come. And, whereas with our big in-person event, we would make a huge push, and we had up to 150 people in the room one time. And then we decided that was too big, and we kind of shrunk it and tried to keep it around 50. That was our first one that we held, was huge. So it was like, okay, this is way too big. So we shrink it down to 50. These little groups that we've been doing since then, though, since the COVID started, we have about 10 to 15 in the room virtually. And, we go around the room, everybody introduces themselves, same thing. Some people are current clients, some people are not. They just showed up to get some input and share their pain about trying to hire during COVID, or trying to keep their corporate culture during COVID. So we've had these kind of different questions, and then, I'll talk on that topic for about 10 minutes and say, talk about our experience. And then we will have staged a couple of our clients to talk about their experiences and how they solve this problem. And then we just go around the room and basically have everybody express what their pain is. And then other people free to make comments on it. So very much a peer interactive kind of meeting. Yeah. And it's an hour long, and we do that thing. And that's been really good for us too. It's not the big event, but it's a more frequent small event centered around a question. Same kind of thing where we have potential clients interacting with our current clients and understanding that this is what's different about Harbor. This is how Harbor does business.
Awesome. All right, so I have so many questions based on everything that you just said. So where were you doing these events?
We're doing those online. The little ones, we're doing the little ones online.
I'm sorry, the 50 to 150
the big
people
ones?
events.
We were doing those at the local Microsoft office. Is where we held those, because Microsoft will let you do it for free. Use their space.
That's really cool. And was Microsoft, tossing in anything since you're an MVP? Like
No,
pay
no,
year's lunch for everyone, or
no, no. We had
okay,
to do that ourselves. So all they do is provide the space in the AV, which is cool, and
yeah.
they have awesome space. So
Well,
made
it
us
sounds like it if you're
made
getting
us
150 people in there.
yeah made us look fancy because the room is really modern and cool looking.
How close is that space to, like, in relation to where your office is?
It's in downtown Detroit, so it's about 15 miles from my office,
Oh, okay.
and it's probably, I mean, our clients are spread out about a 2 hour drive from end to end. Like if I went to the furthest east to the furthest west is probably about 2 hours. So, and we have very few clients in Detroit itself, but
Hmm.
everybody shows up down there for a meeting anyway. It's easy enough to get to. It's right off the
Yeah.
freeway, free parking.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, well, and 15 miles, including traffic, that shouldn't be more than 90 minutes, right?
One thing we have in Detroit are roads, so traffic is
Oh,
almost never a problem. It's
here
a
here in
being
Ohio, we haven't figured that part out yet. We have,
yeah, like being
uh,
the Motor City. We have roads.
yeah,
It's like we have terrible roads because Michigan has the largest number of miles per capita, which means we can't afford to maintain them, but we have them. So traffic's not really a thing.
that's hilarious. Largest number of miles per cat. Wow, I didn't know that was a thing.
It's a thing.
Today I learned.
Yeah.
All right, so um, being 15 miles from downtown Detroit. All right, you're not in Detroit though.
I'm in Royal Oak. It's a suburb.
Okay, so and like I'm in Medina. I'm a suburb of either Cleveland or Akron. Take your pick. So our two states we get along great, especially with college football. I'm told. I'm not a sports person, so
And I went to the other Michigan school, so
so we'll see. Then you and I can be we're fine.
we can be friends.
Well, I don't know if we can be friends, Amy. And it's not. I'm gonna put a play on the old dating phrase, but I'm gonna say it wrong intentionally. It's not me, Amy. It's you. Um, I'm running a Mac, and I love it. And you're a Microsoft MVP, and I just feel like there's not a lot of synergy there. You know,
You know, who makes the most software for Macs?
Adobe, actually, I think so.
Microsoft. Microsoft makes more software for Macs than any other vendor.
I don't know, Amy. I mean, let me see here. Adobe had to install Acrobat Distiller and Adobe Media Encoder just for me to install Acrobat and Premiere. So I mean, it literally takes two applications with Adobe for every one you want to install. So
This is a
they're
selling
catching
point.
up. At
This-
least they're catching up.
That is not a selling point, man. You could have installed
Uh,
Teams, one little app done.
Who wants to use Teams when I have Slack?
Oh, don't get me started. I've had to use Slack a few times. Oh, it is a
So
poor substitute.
well, that's interesting you say that because um, I think Slack came first.
It did, yeah. But
So the fact that it's a poor substitute, um, what like Teams, it sounds like is maybe a better substitute, but I feel like Slack is the OG here, and
well, it
they've
is,
just fallen
but
behind.
it's yeah. Did
Just,
Salesforce end up buying them?
I'm pretty sure they did, yeah.
Yeah, because
At least that's my understanding.
they
They did.
needed something to round it out. Like they got stuck in the forever scrolling virtual chat mode and didn't expand their product fast enough.
Slack or Salesforce?
Slack.
Okay. So I guess I just assumed that that's what Teams is as well. I mean,
No,
you've got
no, no.
your
You
you've got
can.
your forever scrolling chat room.
You do have that, but that's one feature, right? Then you
Oh,
have the actual teams, and you have data, and you have sharing, and you have like all of your files, all of your meetings, all of your chats, all of your everything goes into Teams. It's like Outlook for data and conversation.
so with Teams, and I see Ian says I'll take Slack over Teams any day. Uh, wow, that's that's a bold statement coming from a Google G Suite user, Ian. I think he's G Suite. I'm pretty sure. Um, all right, so that's interesting. So like Slack can do a lot of those things, I think. So Slack, I can do video calling. The free version is only one to one, but if you're on the Slack, the paid version, then you can have, I think it's like 10 or 12 or 25 people in the video call. And I think that's where it gets difficult. If like Google had purchased Slack, then we'd be having a different conversation because then they would have, integrated into Google G Suite
Mhm.
and included it with the licensing, and then I wouldn't have to worry about paying for another thing, right?
Right.
Um,
That would
with
have been a more
Teams,
interesting buy, I think.
I agree, and it's not like they don't have the money to do it. Um, but with Teams, I mean that is the one big selling point. If you're a Microsoft 365, you know, just use Teams. It's there. It's included. There's no limitations because it's already included.
Hmm.
I want to say the 365, whatever they're calling it now, the Business Basic, the standard $5 ish one. That one includes Teams, right?
I think everything includes Teams.
And they all include the same like version of
There's even a
Teams.
free version of Teams. Yeah, they do. It's all the features are in all of the versions. There's
And so with Slack, it's like we've got a was it a 10,000 chat history. We've got a limit on how many gigs of data it'll store,
Mhm.
that type of stuff. Because Slack is free, I'm on the free version, which who knows how long that'll last if Salesforce purchase did really go through. So, what type of limitations are there with Teams for a 365 tenant?
Well, Teams stores its data in SharePoint. So,
Mm,
however much SharePoint data storage space, that's where your limitation is. Now, not all the data is stored in SharePoint. The files are stored in SharePoint. The chats and the conversations that are going on, those are stored in Exchange, which on most plans
interesting.
is near unlimited or unlimited. Um, so there's a lot of latitude there. Then you have different kinds of meetings. You have the instant one-on-one meetings. You have
Hmm.
small group meetings, and then you have live events, which can have 50,000 people now, I think. So
Oh
there's
wow.
lots of options. The Skype phone system is now Teams phone system. So if you want to do a whole phone system scenario, you can roll that in there too. If you just want to talk within your own team, there's a little free phone system built in there for internal conversations, which includes
Hmm.
voicemail and everything.
I've got a colleague, Brian Weiss. A lot of people have probably heard of him, and he's out in California with iTech. He is, if he's not talking about Datto, he's talking about Teams. So he loves it, and I
Mhm.
get it. It's I'm not saying it's a bad software. I tease people, but I really don't care what you guys use at the end of the day, as long as you are proficient enough to provide service to your customers with it and not make the rest of us look like assholes because you're doing it wrong. So I mean he's all in with Teams. He's doing Teams Phone. I mean he's setting up SIP trunks and whatever else to get like actual phone service running through Teams,
Mhm.
and he absolutely loves it. And I think that's pretty cool that they have all of that functionality within Teams. it sounds like, from somebody who doesn't know how to like really speculate, it sounds like Microsoft is trying to figure out what is the next email.
Oh,
You know
well,
what I mean?
yeah, I mean, from day one, Microsoft's been saying that email's dead, and Teams
Says,
is Teams
says the
is
company who sends out so many emails.
yeah, and Teams is the new way to communicate.
Gotcha.
And when Teams first showed up in the market, now I can't. It's around 3 years, I think, or coming up on three, something like that. It hasn't been that long, and I said
Oh, it really hasn't.
to my group here at Harbor, I said, we're going to start using Teams because it's going to replace email. And they went, no, it's not. That's not happening. And I had to drag them over into using this new way of communicating. And guess what? We don't send any internal email, and most of our clients are now sending us things directly into Teams too now. So our email
Okay, now
volume has
hold on just a
dropped.
moment. Because I'm
Yeah.
not a Teams user, I don't understand that aspect. How are your clients sending you Teams stuff?
When you're in Teams, anybody can communicate with you. So if they have Teams or Skype or a few other applications, they're automatically federated in. So they can just type in my email address and poof, it goes off into the Teams.
So I remember when I played around with Teams, probably back when it was still in its infancy. Not that it's much more than a toddler right now, but
Right.
so I remember back then, we couldn't figure out how to do any of that stuff. It was the Federacy, whatever. It wasn't working correctly yet.
No, it does. It works. So yeah, initially Teams didn't have external access at all.
Right.
Now they do. So so all of our clients can communicate with us directly in Teams, and we actually have all of our alerting coming into Teams as well, because Teams can also receive an email, which is an interesting thing. So every channel in Teams has an email address. So when we're setting up a client, we need to, we're setting up something, that we want to monitor that's going to send us reports or send us alerts out. We have those sent directly into that client's channel in Teams. So that's how much we're really focusing our daily work inside of that application.
Well, it's what else is pretty cool. You said that and it just gets me thinking. I suspect you are also able to use that client's channel for if you need to set something up for the client and it requires like a client email address, like maybe you're setting up the Acronis Cyber Protect, that new thing that they've got, and it requires an email address for the end user.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now you can use
Yep.
the Teams channel.
Yep, absolutely. And we do.
Okay. That's pretty cool. All right. Well, I feel like, Teams is probably more important than ever, with this whole pandemic thing. I'm sure, I'd like to think most people have already implemented it for their clients by now, pandemic and all.
Mm-hmm.
So what other stuff would you say is pretty high in your list when it comes to, hey, we're in a pandemic and everyone's remote, we should be using XYZ from 365?
Well, pandemic-wise, Teams really is the big winner. One of the questions that we had in our little roundtable meetings is one was about corporate culture, and another was about kind of keeping the team together during COVID when you're all spread out, right? My company has always worked 100% remote. All my people work from their own home offices, so this was nothing new from us. And maybe we're all sort of introverts, and we had to be reminded that there was a pandemic on, right? as it was, it's the way that we worked anyway. But it was new for almost all of our clients. And but even in my company, so we used to have a meeting every Tuesday, and we would meet opposite. One week it was mornings, and we would meet in person here at my office that Tuesday morning, and we would do client reviews. Right, we go around the room and say what was going on with each of the clients. And then on the opposite Tuesday, we would meet in the evening, and we would meet for dinner, and we would do training together as a group. And when the pandemic came, I said, "Y'all not coming to my house anymore." And so we started to do it virtually, and not having that personal interaction got to be a thing. But what happened spontaneously with my staff is we have a permanent chat in team called All Techs. The All Techs chat started to have a good morning. Like everybody would sign on in the morning and just started saying good morning to each other and posting up stupid little memes and jokes and stuff like that. And that did not happen pre-pandemic. It's like that was there. That's where they would say, if they're working on with multi-factor authentication now, it's spread out to different techs have the multi-factor authentication going to their phone. So if you need to log into that client, well, that tech's going to get the thing. So it was this place where they could say code, please, right? And the person would, punch in the code that popped up on their phone. But it's morphed into this whole water cooler thing, which we didn't have. We didn't have pre-pandemic. And I think it was just a little bit of a stress relief for people to have that little good morning thing. And then we also switched also during this pandemic, my tech manager had open heart surgery. And so that was a bit of a surprise. And that threw me back into the day-to-day operations with the techs for a little while. And so most of them had never worked with me in that capacity before. And so instead of having our Tuesday morning meetings that used to take, most of the morning, I said, let's meet every morning for like half an hour. So just kind of building off of that good morning thing that they were doing. And so interestingly, on the side, when I started it, each of them individually told me that they really, really enjoyed it and appreciated it. But they were worried that nobody else did. So nobody said it in the chat. They only contacted me directly and said, "I'm really glad we're doing these morning meetings. It's helping me a lot." And then when they all had done it, I said, what you guys all did, right? You all individually told me that you enjoy these morning meetings. And it's just like half an hour. And we get online with our tea and stuff and whatever, and say good morning. And this is each tech goes around and says what they're going to be working on today. I got a meeting with this client, and I just got an email about a problem over here, and I'm going to be working on this project. And they just say what they're going to be doing, and then the meeting's over. I mean, it's just a simple little morning thing that lets everybody know that we're all here and we're all still doing our harbor thing, and everybody's on the same page.
That's great. I like that a lot.
Not sure how I got off of that from the whole Teams thing, but it was about it's about keeping people together, keeping the corporate culture together, using Teams for that, and that's where Teams really has shined during the pandemic. When we met with clients in the roundtables that we're holding with them and our prospects together, no matter what topic we propose, it ends up circling back around to Teams in some way. That they have used Teams during this pandemic to build out their cloud infrastructure, to change the way that they're working, to hold their corporate culture together, to help them train new staff that they've never met in person. That's like a new challenge, right? You hire somebody in a meeting like this and you never see them, and they're working off at their home office, and how does that person feel like they're part of the company when they've never met the company? And Teams has been that glue for everybody.
I like it. All right, so let's shift a little bit. Let's talk about Azure. So I know you said you are a consultant for Microsoft 365, which does include Azure AD. I feel like that lives more in the Microsoft 365 than the Azure world.
Mm-hmm.
But are you also doing any type of consulting with your clients on Azure type of stuff?
A little bit. I'm definitely more of a 365 person than an Azure person. We do some things in Azure. Uh, where most of our Azure interaction comes via 365, like you said, with Azure Active Directory, with endpoint management, with identity security, that kind of stuff. But we also do Azure Backup. We do Hyper-V replications. We do one instance of virtual desktops. Um, we do some web application hosting. That's about it. I would say we're not great big Azure users.
Okay. So when a client says I'm looking to get a server or whatever, you'll still pitch them the physical server instead of Azure or something.
No, we'll pitch them like why. Why do we want a server? What are we trying to do with this server that we can't do in the cloud? Right? And putting the server into Azure I consider that to be a legacy solution. Right? So why is it that we still have to have the server? Whether I have the server on premise or I have the server sitting in Azure, I still have a server. And what's the reason that I have to have a server? Is there any way that I can get along without the server? And so that's our first go-to is how do we get rid of the server? We don't want to have them anywhere.
Okay, but what about so I want to say it was last week, I had Vadim from Nerdio, and their big thing is setting up like Windows virtual desktops using Azure.
Yeah, and when I said we're using virtual desktops, we're using Nerdio for that.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So you're not saying you see zero reason to use Azure. You're just saying that you have specific use cases where you'll use it, and others where you'll just look at the client and go, "Huh."
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Why? Yeah. Our first go-to is why do we have to have the server? If there's a good reason for having the server, most likely it goes on premise. If it doesn't, then it'll, we'll, like I said, well, we have actually no servers in Azure except for that Windows Virtual Desktop solution that we have running for one client.
And so with the on-premise servers for your clients, like you're probably not doing, oh, I need a print server or I need a file server. Like, there's a cloud solution for like managed print. I can't remember I think there's a couple of them. Mm-hmm. And then file server, you would just give them OneDrive.
Yep. OneDrive, SharePoint. So files, Active Directory. Most applications are now available as SaaS apps.
Yeah, that's true. And so even line of business apps, they don't need a server for anymore.
Right. Yeah. So we're looking at moving those, and the ones that can't be moved, they still stay on premises, and I kind of like that. So it gets to be the annoying app, right? Like, oh, I have to have the server for that app. Like everything else we do is in the cloud. I still have to have the server for that app, and
that makes them want to find a new app.
It makes them want to find a new app, something that's more modern, something that, if they're at this point, if that application isn't in the cloud, there's probably more than just that's wrong with it. right? It's fallen behind.
That's true. Yeah.
And so that's our premise that we're going in with. Like, what's wrong with this app that it's doesn't have a cloud solution, and the client begins to view the app that way too. And usually they will then come forth and say, yeah, well, we've been using this for 20 years, and yeah, we know, they haven't really improved it in the last 10 years, and we know we should be using something else. And it's just ramps it up one little more annoyance that, eventually they're going to give that app the boot. Especially now with the pandemic thing. I mean, that really shifted that too, because, well, all your stuff is in the cloud except that app, which we're going to have to set up a VPN so you can get to it because it's still in your office.
So, what about Intune? I know they renamed it. It's Endpoint Manager, but I still say Lab Tech because let's be honest. So here's what really grinds my gears, Amy. So ConnectWise, they called their remote monitoring and management tool. It has management in the name. They called it Automate. And then their professional services automation tool, they called that one Manage. That's just genius, if you ask me.
Keep them guessing.
I still say Lab Tech out of spite for that. Mm-hmm. So what about Intune? Are you seeing yourself? I see you've got Datto behind you. So are you using Autotask and Datto RMM? No,
I don't use any RMM.
You're just using Endpoint Manager?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So I say Endpoint Manager because I was not a fan of Intune, but I'm a huge fan of Endpoint Manager. Because what Microsoft did is they didn't just rename it, they actually merged it with Configuration Manager, and which gave us a huge number of additional tools. And so, like, Intune's been around for, 15, 20 years, something like that.
No way, really?
Yeah, it just always sucked. But now it's super good. And so it's an amazing tool. It lets you do the whole zero deployment thing from out-of-box experience all the way, through everything, much more than group policy ever could do. And so we're using it extensively. I just taught a couple classes on it, actually, and those classes had a private Endpoint Manager Facebook group, and I just opened that group up to anybody who might like to talk about Endpoint Manager. So if you want to join us over there, if you go to the third tier Facebook page, and then look up the groups that page has, you'll see the Endpoint Manager group over there. It's just getting going. I just opened it up yesterday, in fact.
Oh, wow. So I've got some questions about Endpoint Manager, and I feel like you're probably one of the best people to ask. So does Endpoint Manager, well, you might not be the best person to ask because you never needed to begin with, it sounds like. Does Endpoint Manager make it so I don't need an RMM anymore?
Yeah, I'm not the best person to ask for that because I've never been a fan of RMM, so I have never used one. Back when they first came on the market, I looked at all of them and I didn't like any of them. So it's just not my style.
So what did you do? Like, because you didn't really have any way to do central management and automation and remediation and all that stuff. Like,
I don't care about that. Right? We're so much remediation, automation, alerting, monitoring. Yeah, like every application has it all built in, and so we just always enabled what was built into those applications, and then had it send its reports, its monitoring, its alerts out to us, and that's the same thing that we do today. Like, and I don't know, our clients don't treat our clients like a commodity, right? So we don't treat our clients like they're all identical, where we're going to send them all the same thing, send them all the same scripts, send them all the same. We don't treat them that way. We treat them all as if they're individual, unique businesses, which they are. So I've never really felt the need to. Right, we don't do a lot of scripting. We don't do any of that stuff.
Well, and okay, so I can appreciate not wanting to think of a client as a commodity, and everyone's a unique snowflake, and I get that, and they are. But at the same time, aren't you creating more work for yourself by not doing any type of automation and scripting?
I don't think so. I mean, a lot happens by itself now, anyway, right? So,
Like what?
well, like patching and updating, right? We turn on Windows. Started this back in as soon as Windows 7 hit the market. So whatever year that was, 2007, something like that. We just turned it on, let it go. Like I don't need to worry about patching. Just worry about patching. And if anything ever goes haywire, we'll deal with it. It almost never does. So it's not something that we worry ourselves about. Same thing with antivirus. With Windows 10, we switched over to Defender exclusively, so we don't use any third party. Previously, we did use a third party, and it had its own management tool built in, and it would tell us if a machine didn't get updated. Hey, I lost contact with this machine. Hey, we were like, okay, we'll deal with the exception. But as a rule, we don't have to touch it. And so if we don't have to touch it, we don't touch it.
And with Defender, are you using like the Defender ATP, the fancy Microsoft 365 version, or are you just using the free one that comes with the computer?
We use the free one that comes with the computer. However, this is where Endpoint Manager comes in. We apply a lot of policies down via Endpoint Manager to enhance that.
What about other like security stuff? Like, are you um, are you employing DNS filtering and UTM firewalls and that type of stuff? Like,
Yep, we do have a UTM firewall. That UTM firewall does have a portal of itself, so we can see all the firewalls that we have. We can back up all the configurations from there. Actually, they back up themselves in there. And so again, we just have to look for exceptions. Right? So the automation is already built into the tool. We can push out updates. Well, the updates happen automatically through the tool as well for that. We can push out our standard set of configuration, and actually that is done by the vendor. So every firewall that goes out with our base configuration already in it, and then we just tweak it for the individual customer once it's there. So
okay, and what other types of security stuff do you? And I'm asking you so much about security because I guess my mind is just blown.
I'm huge on security, but all of our security
Okay.
comes through 365, and we don't sell the $5 license. We sell the $20 license, right? That has all the security tools in it. So we use multi-factor authentication. We sell our clients a password management tool. We teach them how to use those things. We have cloud. We have a licensing for cloud app security through Microsoft that lets us control all the cloud applications, what they have access to, how they share data, expiration of data, tracking when data is shared externally, all tons and tons of alerts that come through there. We have, it tracks impossible travel, access. We block access from Firefox and Windows 7. We block access from other countries. We block access from risky IPs and unknown ISPs and rogue Wi-Fi's. And we do this all through this Microsoft Cloud App Security. I just looked yesterday because I'm writing a big article on taming the alerts out of Cloud App Security. We have 93 different security rules that we use in there to manage it. And then that's on top of the conditional access rules in 365 and on top of the endpoint manager configurations that are going down to the workstations and on top of the Windows Defender. So it's all this big layer, but it's a completely cloud managed experience that we do through all the Microsoft tooling.
So I know that there are going to be people that strongly disagree with how you are doing this, because they're going to say you need Sentinel-1 and a SOC and a SIEM and all this stuff because, compliance and hackers and Russia and whatever else. So how do you reply to those people when they look at you and say, Amy, you're doing this absolutely effing wrong because you don't have real antivirus and real security tools and whatever else?
I say they need to get modern and rethink. Just pushing down the same stuff they've always done in all the same way is actually putting you behind the 8 ball. So we have NIST 800-171 compliance tools through this set that we use. We have CMMC 1 through 5, and I don't recommend anybody go above 3 at this point. It does as far as the tooling. So it's not enforced yet. They don't have to be compliant with it yet, but the templates for providing that security level absolutely exists. And we have those full templates where we can say to a client, hey, this is where you're at, this is where you are, this is where you need to be, here's the things, we've got 3 years to implement this. And we have all those tools available. So we have data loss preventions, we have content, scanning. All that stuff is all built into our 365 offerings. So we have all of those tools. We just don't have them in the, hey, I'm going to install another agent on your computer way. It's all agentless.
Okay. With CMMC, my understanding is because it's not complete, it is still a draft. So there could be changes. They could do a complete 180 on some of their stances that are in CMMC. So
I don't think they'll do a complete 180 because a lot of that stuff is based on the NIST, right? And it's the pulling together of a lot of different security things. But what we have in our Microsoft licensing is a template that shows everything that Microsoft has done on their compliance side, everything our client has done on their compliance side so far, and then where the gaps are and what we need to implement in between. And if that stuff gets changed, those templates will update. So they're not fixed in stone in any way, but they absolutely do exist today. Sure. We're getting a lot of calls for CMMC. So our clients are already getting pushed to be CMMC compliant, even though there's no one to actually do that auditing right now.
Well, and I think that's the part that, because we can't do the auditing, nobody can be level 4 and 5 compliant yet. So
I think almost nobody's going to need to be 4 and 5. I suspect that most of our clients won't need to go above 3. And actually, I can tell you that there's probably very few small businesses in our market, small business, that are actually even level 1 compliant, because level 1 compliance requires data loss prevention. And data loss prevention is something that small businesses just haven't invested in. And our clients have it, but they haven't wanted to implement it because it means classifying all of your files and, really dependent on the end users to learn a lot of new skills. And that's going to be a big focus for us in this coming year is data classification trainings.
Yeah, and that sounds kind of important. There's been a lot going on with security lately, so that's why I'm grilling you with security, because when I hear, yeah, we just use Defender and we let Windows manage the updates, it sounds very laissez-faire we don't dig in and start asking you clarifying questions. I mean, you
Yeah,
understand NIST and you understand the CMMC
right.
draft that exists right now. So
And that's where
you're not doing this
it's the
as a piece of
shifting of
work,
focus, right?
right?
So so the traditional MSP focuses in on managing and monitoring, right? It's like you said, like, how are we going to make money from the cloud? Because I'm just selling them a 365 license and I migrated them, and now why do they want to pay me to monitor? Because I'm doing patching and management of their computers, and it's a ever decreasing value proposition. The value proposition is in all this other stuff that we've been talking about, right? It's about it's about compliance, it's about security, it's about getting that business to stay modern, be better than the competition, learn new things, learn new ways of doing things, getting the value and the promise out of the cloud. That's where the money's at today. And the reason that I'm laissez-faire about that other stuff is because it all just happens. It's like, truly, nobody needs to sit there and monitor updates today. It's just let it ride. Just
Okay.
manage the exception.
Okay. Now, for some compliance stuff, my understanding is, and I'm going to be 100 transparent. I have 0 clients that need to be, regulated, compliant. I don't do any doctor's offices or yeah, none of that stuff. Okay, so I'm not fully up on this, and that's when I rely on people like you to come in and help educate not just me, but all the other people that aren't doing this other
Mm-hmm.
stuff but want to. So with that said, my understanding is that some of these regulations require us to keep logs and all this stuff, retention of all this, so that way we can prove, like, yeah, okay, so we've got all of this stuff, but I can also look through these logs and prove that we really haven't had any security incidents. So how does that work?
That's just part of the licensing. So as you move up from the basic 365 licensing on up the scale, you get longer log retention. So some of it, I think the very basic levels have only like 7-day log retention. But as you move up, the log retention stuff it's there. It's built into the system because they know that's what their customers have to have. So it's just one of the many features.
Okay. Um, I'm trying to think of the other things that an RMM is doing for us, that, all the people that you have to have an RMM tool, because if you don't have an RMM tool, you're not an MSP, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, remotely accessing a machine. Obviously there are tools out there where you don't have to have an RMM to be able to remotely control a computer.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you using?
We use TeamViewer, and
Okay.
we don't install it on the computer, so we don't do any unattended remote access. I've always been opposed to unattended remote access because I feel that it's a security issue. And as we've seen, it has become a security issue. recently.
No.
Yeah. So it took a long time, but I was eventually proven right. um,
So whenever a client calls you and says, I need help, you
yeah,
send them to a URL and they punch in a code.
yeah, yep.
And that is not because you want to make this harder for your techs and you love making less profit margin or anything else. It's because you truly care about the security of your clients. So you're going to make things a little harder for you to make things easier for them. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, to make it more secure for them. I mean, you're always walking that line
Right.
between functionality and security, right? And so there's never going to be a case where somebody gets into one of our clients through a remote access tool. It's never going to happen because we don't have that as an option.
So so you don't do any automated scripting. You don't have any unattended access. You don't use any third-party security because you use all the stuff built into Endpoint Manager. You,
It's more than endpoint
Amy, you're not
manager,
an
but yeah.
MSP. What was that?
Do you just say I'm not an MSP?
You're not an MSP.
So here's the thing. I have this. A few years ago, I wrote an article that made a lot of people upset, and I said, are you an MSP or are you just billing recurring revenue?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So to me, to be an MSP, you have to be providing services. If all you did was take your break fix model and start billing it reoccurringly, then that's all you did. You didn't turn yourself into an actual managed service provider, which to me means becoming that firm's IT department, managing all the services that they have out there, doing everything that they might need from an IT perspective. Even if you don't do it yourself, that you would engage those other vendors and be that point of contact for them. So
Okay.
when we're selling ourselves to a client, it's like we are your IT department, right? It's our goal to become part of your business, not to just be seen as an external vendor that does this specific thing for you, right? We try to really embed ourselves in that company. And to me,
But
that's always been the promise of the MSP, right?
mhm.
Flip this around and look at it from the customer's point of view. From the customer's point of view, the promise of the MSP is that it was much more all encompassing than dealing with the break fix firm who you're going to call when something's broke, right? So
Mhm.
the MSP, too many of them just sold themselves as, well, I'm going to monitor, manage, and provide help desk, and we're faster and better than anybody else. It's like, well, la da da, because everybody's got great staff that's fast and wonderful. That's not your selling point. Your selling point should be that you provide amazing IT services. And that's much more than it's patched, it's got good antivirus on it, and you won't get in trouble with HIPAA. It has to be bigger. It has to be bigger. Every IT attaches to every single aspect of that client's business. They cannot function without something with IT. Are they going to go back to paper and pencil?
Sometimes I want to go back to paper and pencil.
Sometimes my clients want to go back to paper and pencil too, but nobody can survive that way today.
Second grade. All right. So I like what I'm hearing. Um, you while a lot of people are going to say that Amy lady is crazy, you actually seem to know what you're talking about when it comes to the current compliance and security trends and that type of stuff. And while you are not doing things in the conventional way that most MSPs are doing it today, it sounds like what you're really trying to do is be at, the forefront, the bleeding edge, if you will, of using all of the tools that are available to the customer without adding a whole bunch of other crap to the computers and costs to your own um, services.
Yeah,
Does that sound
I
right to you?
yeah, it does. It's a fair assessment. Um, I've had people tell me like, oh, well, you're not an MSP, you're a consulting firm. Yeah, I'm like, well, I don't really see the difference, right? When we sell ourselves to a
Clients
client, they
don't know what an
say,
MSP is anyway.
no, well, they do actually. I was surprised. So for a number of years, we didn't take on any new clients really, and like they sort of we grew a little bit by internal referrals and stuff, but we didn't actually go out and make a big sales push. And then we decided when I was going to pull away from the day to day, and I appointed one of my guys to be the tech manager, and so that's his job now. I said, well, this company needs to be bigger, and so we set out to grow the company, did a lot of active sales, and created those events and things, and we doubled the business from 600,000 to 1.2 million in about 18 months. It took to do that through those marketing programs, and that's all entirely recurring revenues. And so when we did that, I realized that what had happened is companies did know the term MSP, and it was very sad because it would go in, meet a company for the first time, and most of the time they'll sign our contract on the first meeting. But what was happening is we'd go in and they would say, okay, yeah, we've been meeting with MSPs, so we've met with several of them already, so why don't you just give us your gold, silver, bronze plan, and we'll take a look at it. And I'm like, well, I can't do that because we don't have one. And then we start the whole other conversation that we want to talk about. And then they realize, that we're different. And so when I'm billing my clients, I don't quote them a per user price or a per device price. We quote them a per company price, and it's not a fixed thing. So it's really a retainer. So we're saying like, here's the amount of money that you're going to need to spend every month on licensing. Here's the amount of money you're going to need to spend every month on our services in a normal month. If we're running some kind of projects, introducing new things, whatever, then we're going to bill by the hour for that stuff, and that'll be tacked on to whatever the retainer is. So that's how we bill it. And to me, that's still an MSP. It's just a slightly different style than the standard. Here's our suite.
Sure. So that's really interesting, and it makes me want to learn more about how you come up with your pricing and that type of stuff. With your pricing, um, if a company grows or shrinks, they hire a new guy, they let someone go, like is their price changing since it's a per customer price?
No, the only thing that's
Okay,
changing is their licensing cost, right? So
got it.
we've got a software that goes along with it, but no.
Okay, and obviously if they make like a big acquisition or whatever, and now suddenly the company size doubles, now you have to have you sit down at the table, it sounds like.
Yeah, well, so the retainer contains a certain number of hours per month. They don't
Right.
roll over, right? But we'd
Okay.
say, okay, this retainer, we're going to expect to put in about this number of hours, and this is what am I thinking of it on my end, right? This isn't the client's end. I think to myself, okay, this is a 15 user firm. We're probably going to spend, I don't know, depending on, initially we're probably going to spend maybe 15, 20 hours or so kind of getting everything, snuffed up and all that. And then ongoing, if nothing much is happening there, if everything's all copacetic and no changes are going on really, just ordinary help desk and that kind of thing, it's not going to be that many hours for that size of firm, right? Pretty small amount of our time. So I'm thinking of that retainer as how much time is my tech staff going to need to support this company in an average month. And then I'll build that retainer amount off of that number. And I'll say to the client, like, here's what we think it's going to cost. And, for this amount of money, which is your licensing and the retainer thing, we're going to be here all the time for you up to, X number of hours a month. If we go beyond that, I'm going to start billing you by the hour for that. And if we go beyond those number of hours, I'm billing you a pretty high hourly rate for those things that are outside the retainer, right? If this goes on for a couple of months, we should renegotiate that retainer, because I need to be able to plan my staff allocation, and the stuff that's built into the retainer is going to be slightly cheaper for you. And then they go, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, that makes sense. So what is your typical hourly rate on a retainer? And then what is the hourly rate outside of a retainer?
So I'm building my retainer off of the rate of 120, and the things that are outside of a retainer are 175.
Why not just bump that up a little to 180 so it's easy math? Every minute's $3. I mean,
because we don't bill by the minute.
well, yeah. All right, so here's another concern I have, Amy. Microsoft. I'm not sure if you knew this, but they're making all this cool tech, and eventually they're just going to get rid of us. So why are you all in on Microsoft with your clients? They're not going to need us soon.
That's been the rumor for all the 20 years that I've been in business. And, it surfaces up now and again. And, anytime there's change, clients need us. It's not that Microsoft needs us, it's that the customer needs us. And as long as Microsoft keeps building new software and the tech world keeps building new software and making changes and updating things and coming up with new ways of doing things, then the clients will always need us. They don't need us to sell them a piece of software. They need us to understand how to use that software to make it great for their business. That's where our value comes in, and that's where our focus has to be.
So when selling hardware to your clients, first, do you sell hardware to your clients, or do you just say, here, go to wherever and buy it?
No, we sell it. I don't want to deal with Best Buy junk on the computer. It's not what you thought it was internally. Blah, blah, blah. We want real business hardware.
Good for you. So are you selling them like a Surface, or are you doing like Dell, HP, Lenovo type stuff?
We do Surface, and we have Equus as our partner for providing Intel NUCs is our go-to desktop hardware now.
Those NUCs, man, let me tell you, they're cool little devices.
And they're rock solid. We started using them with version 1, and they've been rock solid from the beginning. so rock solid that we have to convince clients to replace them after a while. It's like, used to be like, 3 years, 4 years. The computer was really getting long in the tooth, and you'd say to a client, it's 3.5 years. We better plan in the next 6 months or so to replace that computer, because you know what happens when they get to 4. And they were like, yep, we've been there, done that. We know we need to replace it. These nuts, just chugging away, never a problem, never slowing down, never bogging, just going, going, going. And so we've been able to stretch those out to 5 for clients, and have to say to them, hey, it has been 5 years since you got that nut. We should replace it. We know there's nothing wrong with it, but these are computers, and it's been 5, and we feel like we wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't point that out, right? Because avoiding downtime is a big deal, right?
Sure. So, if avoiding downtime is the goal, why not sell them like one of those tiny Dell or Lenovo workstations? That way you can have the next business day or the same business day on-site warranties.
We used to do that. We used to sell Dell and Lenovo. And then, this is going back a few years, but Dell moved all their production to Mexico. And as soon as they did that, we had issues with getting the Dell hardware on any particular schedule, right? They would be like, oh yeah, it's going to ship tomorrow. Oh, it's stuck in customs for the next 2 weeks. And it would sit there, and we wouldn't get it. And Dell was always a lousy partner anyway. I mean, people complain about Microsoft being a lousy partner. Dell is the worst partner. Like, their salespeople would call up and compete against their own salespeople. Like, oh yeah, well, we already got a quote from this guy. Oh, well, that guy gave you that. I'll give you a better price than that guy did. It's like, what are you guys doing? You're competing against yourselves. I mean, they're the worst partners ever. I know, but they're Dell reps competing against Dell reps is stupid. But I mean, and they would compete against us as well, right? We would have our business rep. He would give us a quote. I don't know what happens internally, but then some other rep would call and say, hey, I can give you a better price. And we call up our business rep, and they're like, this guy is undercutting you. And he would be furious, because that guy would be on the consumer side and he's on the business side. And somehow they had, it's like they were hacking each other internally. It was just awful. And so we finally got out when they went to Mexico. That was like the last straw. The whole Mexico play was a big deal for my clients. This was, I think, right before the big 2008 depression thing. And so most of my clients are engineering and manufacturing, prototyping, those kind of people. So when we said, like, hey, Dell moved all their plants to Mexico, this is why we can't promise you when you're going to get it anymore, because it gets held up in customs. Dell doesn't even know when it's going to arrive. Equus is 100% American. They're here. Support is American. Assembly is American. They're an employee-owned company. Support's in Minnesota. They were, like, we're going to transition over to this, and they were all happy.
That's great. So
the Intel NUCs are great too, because one of the policies that Intel has that Dell never had, right? Every Dell you order is different. Even if you say, I want, and we had clients like this, I want sequential serial numbers of the exact same spec, you would still open up those sequential serial numbers, and they would be different on the inside. Because, I don't know, Dell buys lots of whatever is cheapest, and they build the thing, and they would be different. And there's no way to get the exact same device. The Intel guarantees that you will have, Intel guarantees that you will have the exact same device for 18 months. So we can set up a standard configuration with our vendor for that and say, we want this one, and we know that it is exactly the same as it's been for the last 18 months.
And by different, you're saying, like, different motherboards, different
Yeah.
hard drives, different Wi-Fi? What's different?
Different components on the motherboards, different, the level 2 cache is made by a different vendor that's been installed on that, or just little things are different. It's not exactly the same from board to board to board to board.
All right. I asked you about surfaces, and I don't remember where I was going with that.
You were just asking what hardware we were selling. So yeah, we do sell the Surface laptops, and I'm running Surface Laptop 3. I love it. I've had a book. I've had Laptop 2 and Laptop 3. All been great. Really, really good hardware. Really, really nice stuff. Microsoft's done a really good job with the Surface line. I'm kind of bummed that the stores are not going to reopen. We had a store here locally, and
they're not reopening their
stores. No, they closed them for COVID, and they're not reopening them. And I'm kind of bummed because that was an amazing resource. If you had one locally, and I know not everybody did because there weren't that many stores, but there was a business section that ran out of those stores. And so we would call them up, develop a relationship with them, and call them up and say, hey, we need 3 books and 2 laptops for this client. And they would hand deliver them to our customer. They would drive them out and deliver them. Customer would plug them in, and then we would remotely set them up. And, that was pretty great. And if there was a problem with them, we would call them up and say, hey, there's an issue with this book. They had those fabric covers on the keyboards. They were like, they say that it's starting to get kind of nasty. And they were like, okay, yeah, we'll bring them out a new one. And they would drive out there and bring it, drop it off, take the old stuff back. They were
That's really cool.
Their customer service was amazing. So I'm really bummed to have lost our local store, actually.
That is unfortunate. I remember getting myself a Surface Book for a little while. Didn't love it.
Oh.
And I'll tell you why. It's probably a dumb reason. The screen, for as tiny as it was also like a 4K resolution on the first model. And so when I would open up Photoshop on that tiny little screen, I couldn't see anything, because even though I had it in make everything bigger mode so it looks nice on the screen, Photoshop didn't support that at that time.
Oh yeah.
They might now, I don't know.
Right.
But so just I was like an old man, and that was before when I could actually see without my glasses. Now that I have diabetes. Don't eat fast food all day, kids. So yeah. Now that I have that, I'm on medication, and now I have to wear my glasses. As soon as I started diabetes medication, I can't see for crap. So
that's just, I don't know if that's related to diabetes or if that's just part of getting old. I have a whole mug of reading glasses over here.
No, my doctor confirmed I'm farsighted. So he actually confirmed with me that diabetes medication can impact your eyesight to the point where you before were farsighted but could also see pretty well up close. It would just strain your eyes. Now your eyes are like, no thanks. So I have to have my glasses in order to see it. It really sucks. But so I'd be trying to use that Surface Book, no glasses, because that was back when I could do things like that. Yeah. I couldn't see a thing on that when I was trying to use Photoshop. 2000
by 3000 resolution, I think, is what they ship with. I think they still ship with that. Although they may have gone up from there. I don't know. But yeah, that was a thing. And scaling was a thing. Like some apps didn't scale right, so they would be weird. Now they're all good. But yeah, no, I liked the book. The reason I switched to laptop is I never used the thing as a tablet. So it was like, I don't really care if my screen detaches because it's not a thing for me.
Gotcha.
So
And I haven't played with the laptop line. It seems neat.
yeah,
Um, I just, I feel like the Surface is kind of like Apple computers where, you're paying a premium for premium stuff, but not everybody really needs that.
yeah, you are paying a premium for premium stuff. Um, you're right. Not everybody needs it, but um, most people in business do because it's on 8 or 10 hours a day. They're hammering on it. It's going to take it. Um, Now they all took it home, so it was nice. So I mean, there's a movement toward laptops for a while, but now, man, that's really shifted big time. Like nobody wants a desktop anymore. Everybody wants a laptop. So most of our clients are all, they're all back working in their offices now, but there's a lot more fluidity to
That's
it,
good.
right? So they're back one day, they're at home the next day, they're back, right? There's a lot of fluid movement. Whereas before they would have worked at home all the time, but that 6 weeks last spring told them that, whereas before they would have worked in the office all the time, that 6 weeks when we did have shut down last spring taught them all that they could actually work from home. And so those laptops, became really a valuable asset. And now they're seeing that fluidity of people moving back and forth from home to office, home to office.
Very cool. So talk to me about third tier. That's one thing that I'd really like to understand better because it sounds like you're really doing a lot to help the MSPs out there with third
That's
tier.
the whole purpose of third tier. So in 2008, I started third tier with another MVP friend of mine who has since passed away.
Mhm.
So, but what it is, it kind of grew out of being an MVP in that once you're an MVP, people start calling you and saying, hey, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? Um, and so I started doing that, and that was generating some revenue, and it was going through Harbor, my MSP, and then it just became too much. It was like, this is really a whole different business. And so a friend and I formed third tier because he was when MVP also was having the same problem. Like this helping other MSPs things doesn't really fit in with my MSP, right? So make it its own separate business is what we did, and its sole purpose is to help other IT professionals. And so initially, what we did with that was technical support. So if you're an MSP and you're stuck on, it's exclusively Microsoft technology, but so if you're stuck on something that's gone wrong, Windows Server, Hyper-V, SharePoint, 365 now, whatever, you need help with migrations, you need help with SharePoint, you need help with SQL, you need help with Hyper-V, you need help with performance issues in the Hyper-V environments, clustering, all that kind of stuff, Exchange. I have a group of people that are either current or former MVPs that that's all they do. These are geeks that love to geek. And so they tend to be specialists in their particular area. And if you need somebody to help you out because you haven't done that thing before, right? As IT people, we can all figure our way through it, but it might take us hours and hours and hours and hours. Where if somebody has done it before, can help you through it, you'll be done pretty quickly. And so that's what the goal is there. And then recently, what I started doing is really producing materials to help people out with 365. So last year, I ran a webinar series called 365 Admin Don't Miss This Setting. We went through all the different portals in 365 and talked about how to set them up. And it was just 30 minutes, all demo. And I went through like, this is all the things you need to do to set up, your Azure Active Directory. These are all the things you need to do to set up Teams. These are all the things you need to do to set up OneDrive. These are all the things you need to do to set up we just went through all the different portals. And we did it for a whole year. So there's 12 of those, and they're recorded. So if you go to the third tier website, you can pick those up. And then this year, what I'm doing is called Microsoft 365 Admin Make Money. And the Make Money series is about making money. So it's about taking the different aspects of Microsoft 365 and selling those to your clients and making money off that project. So I'm going through the project and providing email templates to sell it and to train and to step through it, the whole thing end to end, and tell you what I charge my clients for something like that, and then say, hey, go out and make some money.
That's really cool. And so how much does third tier charge for this type of stuff?
So if you want to join me for the whole year, it's $200 a month. If you want to pick and choose, they're $250 a piece. And if you got in January, I had a special offer going, so a bunch of people piled into that. But you'll get the whole 12 months. So in the end, you're going to make, I don't know, tens, hundreds, thousands of dollars off of rolling out all these projects for your clients, and you'll make money from the cloud.
So $2,400 to get access to third tier for the year, and as long as we actually go through and pay attention to your courses and email templates and everything, and then do the work, we will make substantially more than that from our existing clients. And if we do it right, we could even get more from prospects too.
Well, yeah, for sure. So in January, we started with something really simple. We did bookings, right? Bookings is an app that's in the 365 suite, and it generates a web page where you can have offerings of all different sorts, whatever you want to do, embed those into your own website, and let clients schedule time. Your prospects can schedule time with you. Clients can schedule a meeting with you, whatever you want to put out there. You can also link it into your signatures, and you can link in all those different offerings that you have for meeting types into those signatures. So I showed you all how to set that up. And, one of the guys in the class was like, he's been selling his clients Calendarly. And he's like, our clients are going to be, he's selling it to them, the paid version. He said, and because he didn't know it was already built into 365. He said, and this has way more features than Calendarly does. He said, so really? I'm going to be able to go to them and say, hey, here's an application that he's going to go and say, hey, look what Microsoft just added, right? So he doesn't look dumb. And, I'm going to be able to save you a lot of money. Let's go ahead and implement this thing. So you're going to save money. I'm going to charge you to get this thing set up and configured, get it all going. But you're going to save money every month from the licensing. He's like, my clients are going to be so happy, and I'm going to make a bunch of money. So there you go.
So here's my confusion with Microsoft 365 and things like bookings. Mm-hmm. As the MSP, shouldn't part of what I'm offering my clients be just setting this up and training them how to use it?
Yeah, should be. Nobody does.
So then why are you selling it to them?
Well, you're selling them the project, right? They already own the application. It's like, hey, here's something that you guys already own. We should start using it. Right, let me show you how it's the same thing you do. Like, hey, here's 365. It has email. You're not going to say, you're not going to end the conversation there. You're going to charge them to migrate their own email into it and set up Outlook for them, right?
Gotcha. I guess my definition of a project is a little different. When it comes to something like bookings, I mean, I guess I'm thinking, I'm going to spend a couple hours setting up the bookings for them and showing them how to send out their bookings link, and I'm done. Why would I charge them for that? They're already paying me hundreds or thousands of dollars a month to be their IT department. So it's not like the IT department's doing this in after hours overtime. It's just my job.
Depends on how you're charging your clients, right? If you're charging them all you can eat for all the work you can do, then yeah, you should be rolling out this stuff constantly for them. That's not how most everybody works. Most everyone is charging their clients for a minimum set of services, and when you want to go beyond that, you make more money, right? You need to structure your service contract so that you have a way to make money. Right. All these projects are ways to make money. And are you going to make tons of money off of rolling out bookings? No. But you're going to make some. You're going to get your clients in the mood for doing new things.
Teams is where you're going to make a lot of money.
We have Teams is like the gift that keeps on giving, because there's so many features that you can keep doing projects constantly. But you have to build up the culture of change within your clients, right? So a way to ease them into that is to say, well, let's get bookings going. And then they'll be like, well, that went really well. That was easy. That went really well. Then the next time you come to them and say, well, let's start doing external chats in Teams, they'll go, well, okay, well, the last thing you suggested went really well. So, okay, let's do that. We can see where that would be valuable. So you have to train your clients to be okay with change. And once you build up that culture of change, they're more and more willing to accept projects. I always like to start off with little ones and then build out off of those.
So one of the last things I want to grill you on to ask you about is there's another group that you have on Facebook. It's called MSP Regulation and Legislation. So talk to me about the purpose of this group, because I think it's safe to say we all know it's coming. So what is the purpose of this group on Facebook?
So I have three groups on Facebook, right? There's another one called Ransomware and Security. That one's probably obvious what it talks about. The Legislation and Regulation group, my opinion is like yours, it's coming. However, I think that we should have a voice in that. And we're at a serious disadvantage in that we have no trade organization that represents all of us. Like, you and I don't pay a fee to join an organization and have that organization represent us. Almost all other professional industries do. In fact, I'd be hard-pressed to think of one that doesn't, right? Accountants have their AICPA, lawyers have their boards, mechanics have their licensing, contractors have their licensing, hairdressers have their licensing programs. These things.
I can think of one.
Yeah.
The guy that fixes the milkshake machine at McDonald's, he can't be regulated. He never even goes to fix it.
It's always broken. Yeah.
It's always broken.
Well, you could say the same thing about computers, unfortunately. They're always broken. But so I think we should have a voice, right? If you don't have a voice, these regulations will be done to you instead of done with you. Right? And if it's done with you, there can be some advantages to it that can happen as well, right? The reason why it's occurring, we'll step back, way back here for a second. The reason why it's occurring is because of ransomware. Businesses and governments are sick to death of ransomware, and they think that their IT firms are protecting them. and then they're finding out that they're not, right? They bought the cheapest thing possible, and then they just assumed that they were going to be protected. It's not the case. And, all of us know there's no 100% security, right? So no matter what we do,
Of course there is.
somebody's going to be vulnerable in some way. We can unplug, I suppose. That's it. But and so they're looking around, and this started in Louisiana, and they looked around and said, who are these MSPs? I want to talk to their trade organization. I want to find out who these people are. And they looked around and said, oh, there's nobody. They're completely unregulated. Anyone can hang their shingle out and say, I'm an MSP. There's entirely no way for the consumer to determine of whether this is a legitimate firm or a fly-by-night trunk slammer, man in the van person. It's a complete buyer beware situation. And so they said, okay, well, what Louisiana decided to do was to make anyone selling IT services into a government agency, local or state, didn't matter. You'll have to register with the state and say this is who we are, and you're required to report any security incidents that occur under your watch. So this does two things. It lets them know who's working in the industry, at least as far as government goes. And then two, they're keeping track of your reputation as a firm. So other government agencies can go through and look and see, oh, this company had 3 security incidents happen under them, or this one hasn't had any yet, so I'm probably going to go with that one. So they have started that in a very small way, that regulation. But their attorney general has been out there talking on the conference circuit all over the country, and almost every state now has legislation or has people that are thinking about introducing legislation in the works. So what we're going to get is a hodgepodge of stuff, and that's not good for anybody. But secondly, if you're not there when your state or local government is considering these kinds of things, who knows what they'll come up with, right? We don't want them to say like, hey, there's we're getting your group of legislatures because they don't know anything about tech. Oh, we're reviewing a tech bill. Well, let's call up Netflix and see how they have to advise us on this. They don't know anything about this business, but that's who they're going to call. They're going to call those big names. They're not going to call Jim's MSP down the street unless you are there. If you are there and say, hey, I'm here, they'll say, oh, yeah, we've got this thing coming up. We need to talk to you and figure out how to do this right. Because they do want to do it right. They just, if they're not talking to the right people, they won't do it right. So that's really what we want to happen, and that's kind of what the purpose is of this group. I don't want to form the national organization that we're actually going to need, but somebody will. And in the meantime, the purpose of the group is really to kind of help keep everybody aware of what's going on, sharing information, that kind of stuff. Ways that this can end up benefiting the consumer and also benefiting us as an industry. I mean, think about the mechanics, right? You can do business with your shade tree mechanic, right? Your neighbor down the street will come and, you'll pay them a 6-pack of beer and they'll change the brakes on your car for you. Mm-hmm. Or you could go to a master mechanic and pay a higher price for that, but get potentially a different level of service. Your microphone is messed up. I don't know if it's me or you, but your microphone is like all staticked out right now.
Is it still?
Still, yeah. It's a weird, echoey, staticked out. But the other industry that does this pretty well is the construction industry. Right, so they have different levels, and I'm told that in California, if you're unlicensed, you can go out and provide construction services, but only up to a certain dollar value. If it's above that, dollar value for that particular project, then you have to get a licensed contractor. Now, in my state, if you're a licensed contractor, you have the ability to put a lien on the structure that you did the construction on if you don't get paid. So there's an advantage to the contractor to be licensed as well. So, those are kind of some examples of how things can be done the right way, that the consumer is easily differentiate between an unlicensed person and a licensed person, and you have some confidence that the registered licensed person is more competent than the one that isn't. And there's a pay differential for those people too.
Absolutely. You're able to hear me okay now?
Yeah, you sound better now.
Okay. So I reloaded the page and now everything's great. So, all right. So I have a bunch of links that I'm going to put into the YouTube description for when people come and watch this later, so they'll be able to get to the Harbor Computer Services website, the Third Tier website, Third Tier Facebook group, and all three of the Third Tier Facebook page, and then all three of the groups that you've made. Those links will all be in there for you. And then I know it's maybe a little last minute for some people, but in 40 minutes there is a CMMC webinar. It's looks like it's with Tim Golden, but it's listed on the Third Tier regulation group.
Yep. So yeah, check it out. We try to post all kinds of things in that security group. It's really a pretty active group.
Excellent. For those of you that are not yet in that group, I have been in it, and I can tell that there are some people in there that are taking this thing really seriously, and I appreciate that. So please go check out the MSP Regulation and Legislation Facebook group. I think it would be very worth your time. And if you have time, go check out the CMMC thing. Are you sponsoring or any part of that, or is that all Tim?
No, it's all Tim.
Okay. Are you going to be doing any upcoming webinars that we should be looking for?
The only ones that I've got on schedule right now are the Make Money series, which you can find out about on the Third Tier website.
Well, go check those out too, guys. Amy, thank you so much for coming on here with me today. I had a lot of fun. I learned a lot. I hope my questions and whatnot didn't beat you up too much. I like your approach. It's like you said, it's different, but you're shifting. You're shifting your focus on what you really should be focusing on, and I still think that we are going to disagree on some things, like scripting and automation. I think that those things could help you be more profitable. But I think you have a solid approach, and at least you have good reasoning for why you're doing what you're doing too. So, thank you.
Oh, thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Is there anything that you would like to leave people with? Any words of wisdom?
Words of wisdom. I don't know. I mean, I think we've covered about everything. I just think that people should get paid for what they do. I run into too many MSPs that are like, all this stuff. They tell me like, well, all this stuff you talk about is really great, but we'd go broke if we did all that, because they don't have the mechanism to bill their clients. So my parting word of advice is make sure that you always have a way to bill your client.
Amen. All right. Thank you so much, Amy. Thank you for those of you that were able to hop on and watch this live. And thank you to those of you that watch this later. I will see you all at the next podcast episode. Take care, guys.